love it when the bass drop. That shit boom.
We got some warp modes. We're gonna go over the warp modes inside of Ableton. We're gonna do some little handy things that help you just kind of navigate through Ableton a little bit better, like some automation tips and whatnot. I'm gonna show you how to set the BPM for a certain level if you do a lot of tempo changes in your song. I'm going to show you how to set that up so you can stay within your BPM levels and just a little bit more organized. I guess a lot of people didn't really know about resampling, so I'm going to go ahead and show that. Look at that. Look who commented. Look at that.
Julian Gray.
Is it?
Julian Gray's grandma, I believe.
Oh, alright, sorry. So we're going to show resampling, routing, track routing, and you know, return tracks and whatnot. Hot swapping, because that is a handy thing. I use that a lot. We're also going to show off how to like warp in general, just a little bit of an overview. Audio to MIDI, like audio to harmony and melody. It's a cool thing that a lot of people aren't too familiar about. We're going to get some correct macroing down, how to label and set up macros correctly, and how to avoid drum confliction. If you got, you know, your kicks and your snares, and then you got your impact drums and whatnot, and you know, your orchestral loops, and how to have it all fit in there and sound like it's not all cluttering up and whatnot. I am not an avid PC user, so bear with me.
Kick you looking for?
Just any kick. Ooh. I like this one. Actually, isn't this from the free drum pack too? Drum pack volume 1?
Yeah, this is the free drum pack.
Hey.
75 free drums.
Alright, so let's go ahead and also get... I like to do pre-masters.
Let me see your phone real quick. I gotta use the Pages app so I can pin my
I like
phone.
to put my master on before I get started. So let's go to the Ableton live racks that we got somewhere. Oh, there we go. If we go in alphabetical order. So we've got mastering racks. I'm gonna throw on my mastering rack. So let's put the kick to about -10 decibels. That's what I like to do. And I'm going to go ahead and group it. Or actually, you know, I'm going to leave it ungrouped. So,
is it called?
So we got a pre-master on there, which is from our Ableton live racks, of course. I don't really do equalizing a lot. So, I mean, if the kick sounds good when I listen to the kick and I like it, then I'm just going to leave it. So that's already a pretty fat kick to start with, but let's go ahead and make a little bit of fatter. I'm going to actually put it in a group like I said. So in Ableton, try not to sleep on the stock presets they give you. So I'm going to go to, let's see, let's do the punch one actually. So I don't want too much of an attack on it. It's probably about good. And then let's see what it sounds like with a little bit more release. Alright, it's not too punchy. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the threshold, and then we're still coming out green over here, so why not crank it up a little bit. Ooh, that sounds good. Before that, I'm also going to put a saturator. So just drag that in, leave that the same. Let's try a medium curve. So It's taking out a little bit of the low end. Not sure how I like it. Alright, let's leave it about there. And I mean, that's pretty much it, honestly. Just a little bit of saturation and glue compression. I mean, if you want to, you could go in and do some EQing before all of it. You know, we could have the low end cut off to, let's say, like, let's do like 45. And then for our second band, let's go to maybe like 75. We could boost it a decibel. Whoop. Boost it a decibel if I could get it. And then sharpen the Q a little bit. Give it a little bit more presence. Maybe go to 12,000 and boost it up 1.5. Just have it come through in those frequencies and sound a little bit better. But yeah, I try to keep it pretty I'm sorry, I can't think. Pretty simple. So let's do some warp modes. Let's go ahead and see if we can't just find a pre-made lead. I like that.
That's from our Carnage pack.
So right now when it's coming in, it's here's our warp modes right here. So we're gonna have beats, tones, texture, repitch, complex, and complex pro. All right, and then with these warp modes, when we change it, each one's gonna have its own little thing. The tones has a grain size, little macro, texture, grain size, and a flux. Repitch actually I was wrong. Repitch is the only one that does not have it. Complex doesn't either, actually. And then we have, for pro, we have formats and we have envelopes. So let's go ahead and go through these. Let's start with beats first. So we have this right now. Let's turn that down. Right, it's imported in beats. So say I want it a little bit shorter, right? Or even we can make a arpeggiator out of it. Right, doesn't sound too good. So in these modes, we have a transient mode, we have a third, we have 16th, 8th, 4th, half, and a bar. So then we have these modes, which is, this one is going to play it back and forth. So let's say we just pitch it up right now. Let's put it on its 16th. And we're going to pitch it up 12 semitones or cents. And then right now it's going to be playing back and forth. So what we have here too is a 0 to 100 value. So what this is pretty much how long it's going to play that 16th notes, how short the transient's going to be and whatnot. So here's what it sounds like with these settings with 100. Right, it doesn't even sound that bad actually. So let's turn down this. Not doing much. Let's go ahead and put it on the this one's gonna play it straightforward in 16s. Alright, so maybe let's make it a little bit shorter. So right there we got a cool little art just to begin with. You know, and you could put it to 8s. Or you could put it to 4ths, a bar, so on and so forth. So that's beats, the beat warp mode. I use that one a lot. Tone is cool too. So let's go ahead and drop this down 12 actually, and we're gonna extend the loop. So we have a grain size right here, and it might not sound pretty, just forewarning. So we have this grain size, which is gonna, not too exactly sure what it does, but I know it changes the sound. So let's see what it sounds like. Right, so it's putting it in tones, and then it's I think it's grain delaying it is what it's actually doing, and then you have, you know, the size of your grain delay itself. So this is cool to use for leads and whatnot. Then we have our texture, which is kind of the same, but a little bit easier to, or not a little bit easier, better to get more of like a specific sound instead of just that that grain delay that you have. You have that too, but you also have flux modulation, so it kind of can get a cleaner sound sometimes. So let's see what this sounds like. So, you know, you can get cool noises out of there and whatnot. We got the repitch one, which what this is going to do is it's, let's see. Okay, so what the repitch does is it's going to take, instead of the transposition, it's going to take the warp, the segment of the BPM for how the pitch is actually going to come out. So if we have a long one. Right. So I don't use that one too much. I'm pretty sure it could be used to some type of advantage. So then we have complex, which what complex is it's just trying to give the best representation it can when you transpose it or when you change it. So it tries to keep, you know, as clean as the sound as it can. It's just trying to base it off of the transposition, how much you're going up and down in cents or semitones. Complex Pro is, I don't know how to really explain this one. It's like complex. It can be the normal noise, but you can go in between almost like a dry wet of it not being affected by the transposition at all and the transposition being fully on. So if we turn the formats down, so it's almost like it's adding another, you know, the dry signal on top of it, and then you can mess with the envelope to kind of fine tune it. But if you put it like halfway, you can get this really cool detuned sounds a lot of the time. So that one's kind of cool. So those are the warp modes. So while we're in here, let's go ahead and go over a few automation and whatnot, just like a few little tips to kind of help you maneuver faster. So, you know, if you want to fade your automation, you could go ahead and click your 2 points, right? And you don't want it to be straight like that. You know, say you want the volume to rise up super fast, or you want it to have, you know, whatever. You want the fade to be less or more. So you can go ahead and just hold down Alt. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to control the fade of how much it's coming in instead of just that straight line. So damn it. So I use that one a lot. Another one is actually being able to split your automations into their own separate lane. So you have this little plus. If you go on to the thing you're actually automating, you have this little plus right here. And so when you click it down, we have 3 separate ones now. But it puts whatever you are currently selecting into its own lane. So this is cool because, you know, say you don't have these lanes on and you're like, oh, well, I got this automation like this. Oop. Damn it. I got this automation like this, but I want to duplicate the automation. And then when you do it, it duplicates the track, but you want to keep that same music. You could split it into the lane and then highlight the area you want to duplicate, and, you know, without actually changing the audio itself. So this is pretty cool. And then, you know, you could go in, say you had whatever glue compressor, you could go in and you could do each separate one into its own lane, and it's just a little helpful thing to kind of stay organized with everything. Let's go ahead and do the beats per minute change, how to stay organized with that. So say at the end of my songs, I really like to drop the BPM so it sounds like it's like slowly trailing off. So we're gonna go ahead and go into our master, and we're gonna find our little mixer, and we're gonna click on this. I'm gonna go to our song tempo. So we have these right here, which is our pretty much values of how much we're able to go in between our tempos. So our song right now is at, you know, 112, and you know, we don't want it to drop below 90. So now it will stay within 112, but it won't drop below 90 no matter how much I drag it down. So that's a cool little thing too. I use that a lot. Alright, so let's go ahead and show resampling. So let's go ahead and do this actually. Oh, I'm pressing things I shouldn't be pressing. So let's load this up in a group and let's duplicate it just in case if we need to. Alright, that's up 12. Let's put that down to 0. Change this back to complex. Alright, put that a little bit lower. So resampling would be, you know, freezing and flattening would be, so we have our, you know, we got our glue compressor or whatever, we just got all of our shit up on here, you know, whatever, I'm throwing random things, you know, you got it and you're like, wow, this is taking up a lot of processing, a lot of CPU, a lot of CPU, so I want that to not be so heavy so I can keep making my song. So, you know, you freeze your track down, you flatten it, and you're like, oh shit, but I want it to be processed again, or processed the same way, or I was taking off the lows, or you know, you have a huge chain in there, or yada yada yada, a lot of examples. So a better way to go ahead and do that is I'm actually going to put some real things on here so it doesn't sound absolutely horrible at first. So we'll just leave that on there. So we have that processing, and then you know, we don't want to freeze and flatten it and have to redo all of our audio because we're lazy. So we're gonna go ahead over to here on this little right middle section. You have the 3. You have your audio, and you know where your fades and your mixer is, all your automated parameters, and then over here you have your inputs and whatnot. And then on this side, you know, you have your volume, your singling, your recording, unless you, of course, open up your delays. But actually, I should go over that too. So, track delay. So, what was I saying? I'm sorry, I lost track. Okay, so we're going to go over here. We got our exit in on our first channel, and we got it going to our master, right? We need an open audio track, first of all. So, it's the audio from this is currently going to be going to the master, and we don't want that. What we want to do is we want to record this sound up here, but in a new lane, so that way we don't have to redo our processing, or even we don't have to freeze the track down and flatten it. Say we're like, oh shit, we want to change something, you know, you have to recreate it or whatever. So we're going to click where our master is, and we're going to get, I apologize again, we're going to click where exit in is, and we're going to go on down to resampling. So we got that. We got our group, and it's playing 2 instruments though, right? And we only want it to resample this one. So we're going to go ahead and single that track, and we're going to click Control, and we're going to single our resampling track, right? And so we're going to click on the record button now. And so now when we go and re-record it, you know, so then you get that whole raw audio with all the processing and whatnot, and you didn't have to touch this or anything. So now, you know, we move on with this sound or whatever, or we want to develop it more, we could put it in there. And since it already has that processing, you know, we could go ahead and take off that and now, you know, add some weird thing and redo it again, and then, you know, drag that audio back up into there, and, you know, keep repeating the process until you get crazy sounds or whatnot. So that's the thing that a lot of people didn't know about that is super useful. we got routing. So let's show off some track routing. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't just find a certain key. Alright, so we got... Ooh. Let's do this. Let's put this to 140. And then this to 140. Alright. I don't know if this is gonna work. Let's see. No, it's off time. So let's re-put this in here. Why is it so fast?
I don't know.
What's going on here? So we're just putting random noises in right now. Let's see if we can't find a ARP or something.
I don't have a lot of art.
So, you know, let's do that.
Art patches and serum.
Well, let's do that trick that we did earlier. Let's take a vocal from something.
Gamer girl.
Yeah, let's get a phrase. Where's the gamer girl?
Type in gamer girl. I don't have it on her vocal yet. There you go.
So let's take this even. Let's go ahead and we're just going to cut this off. We're going to put that like there. We're going to need that. Alright, so let's consolidate that. We go ahead, keep it on the beats. I'm going to want it in 16ths. Go ahead and see what this is. Right, so I'm not trying to actually do anything musically at the moment, but so let's show off some routing. So actually let's go over how we do that. So we're going to right click on an open area or Control Alt T, I guess if you're on PC. I think it's Command Alt T on Mac. We're going to do insert return track. So then we have this return track right here. And let's just throw reverb on it for the moment. Like so. So we got this art playing through, right? And, you know, say we're a bunch of tracks in or whatnot, or even we have, you know, we have 2 ARPs in here, right? So let's add another ARP. We got 2 ARPs in here. And, we are already heavy into processing and whatnot, or even we have, you know, 8 different groups that we have, right? That we all want to be affected by one type of audio processing or audio effect or whatnot. So we have these sends right here, which we have our A return track, right? So we want our ARPs, which are right here. We want our ARPs to all have some reverb on it, but we don't want our bass to have reverb, only our ARPs, right? So we're going to go ahead and... Right? So you can kind of dial in, you know, how much you want or whatnot, but say you have your sounds, your ARPs right here, and you're like, oh, I don't want the sound doubled like it's doing right now. It's playing a dry signal and then the wet signal. You only want the wet signal to come out, right? So we're gonna go into our first column right here on the far right, and actually, again, I'm wrong. We're gonna go to our second column where master was last time. And we're going to go down to sends only. So now when we play it, we're not going to hear the ARP. That's because now it's only playing out of the wet signal. So instead, however much you turn it up right here on the side in this view, or if you're in this view, it would be your send view. is going to determine how much the wet signal is actually coming. You know, so it's really cool to do with pads when you don't want pads to, or no, I'm sorry, not with pads. It's good for atmosphere when you don't really want like necessarily like a huge presence, but you want like still a feeling or whatnot. You could just go ahead and cut it out of the song and you know, send it to return rack and put some reverb on it and maybe send it to the back of your stereo view or whatever, and you know, maybe cut off the low end, yada yada yada. So it can be used pretty well and pretty good to your benefit. Yeah, so good and well, my God.
Nice and great.
Nice and well.
Nice and good things.
So now we got hot swapping. So hot swapping is, we got this bass now. And I'm like, I don't like it, right? I'm like into the song. I'm like 4 minutes into my song, just about done, or 2 minutes or whatever. And I'm like, you know, I actually don't like this bass, or I don't like this kick or whatever. So I'm gonna type in another bass. And I'm like, you know, that's gonna fit my song more. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go up here. We have our little options and whatnot, and we're gonna click View, and we're going to go to File Manager right here. So that's gonna bring up this little ditty do, and you're gonna click Manage Set, and then you're gonna click View Files. So if we had, you know, a bigger track with whatever, it's gonna show all your tracks in here. So you're going to want to find you know, what track you want specifically, or, you know, to help you out a little bit better, you could name it like bass 1, like so. Yeah. Or I guess it didn't change it.
You click the drop down arrow on it.
Okay, so yeah, so then you will see, you know, what it is. We know it's bass 1. Thank you, Chud. Yep. So click the drop down arrow if you're having trouble finding your track. So let's go ahead and get rid of these. We don't need these because we just want to change this. So what we're going to do for that is we got this little swappy arrow. It almost looks like a recycling symbol. And we're going to click that. And so now we're in hot swap mode. Sounds cool, right? So we're going to go ahead and, again, make sure we have the track we want to swap out selected. So I like that loop. I got to reselect it again, and I'm just going to double click it. And there we go. So now it's swapped out. So the cool thing with this too is, say, you know, you got you know, some automation or whatnot going on. If we could, whoop. Why is it doing this? That's why. Track volume. Or even, you know, we have track panning, right? We're putting it left or right or whatever. So we're like, oh, well, crap, you know, we have all this automation. We're so far in the song. Well, it doesn't matter. Guess what? It doesn't matter. So then we're going to go ahead. We got, you know, the next thing we want to hot swap out because we don't like it, right? So we're going to double click it again, and wow. It keeps that automation. It will keep any automation or, you know, anything you did to it. So it's a cool little nifty feature. So while we're here too, let's show off some basic warping. We imported this loop, figuratively speaking, right? We imported a loop and it doesn't have a warp on it and it looks off time. We're like, oh shit, what do we do? So we're going to click warp and it's going to put it in a warp mode. You don't typically want to use beats. That warp mode, you want to do the complex one, because it's going to give it a more accurate representation. Right, that's just not on time at all. Like, who are you? So we're gonna go ahead and find probably our last hit or so right there. And what that did is when you double click where you want it to be, it's gonna create a little warp module guy, which then is going to drag the track. You can have as many as you want as of these, but it's going to adjust the track. Or if you want to, you can go in here with your numbers or whatever and be all fancy. So we're going to go ahead and zoom in, and we're going to say, well, look, this last hit, like, it looks like it's, 4 bars at 64ths or whatever. So we're going to want to have it take up that last little bit of space that it needs. We could even add another little one and put our little tail in there. Little tail in there. So we're going to look at it and just kind of go over every beat. Make sure that, it's on the beat. If you really want to be super anal about it, go ahead and adjust every little thing and make sure it's right there. But it's pretty much warping. So then, it looks all in time. Sounds a lot more on time. I think we did a good job.
Sick.
Yep. Ooh. So we're almost there. We got audio to MIDI. This is, what was that?
So this should be a fun one.
Yeah, this one's cool. It's a little bit experimental, but it's a fun thing to do when you're lacking ideas or anything like that. So let's go ahead and find like a piano. So So that's cool. I like that, but I like the way that it sounds and it's set up. Especially if you're like, I don't know how to write those notes. I don't know what key it's in. You're gonna go ahead and select your track. You're gonna right click on it, and you're gonna let's do convert harmony to new MIDI track. So it's gonna take a second. It's gonna figure it out. It's going to do its best job to represent it. But now, so we have the MIDI, so, we could go in and, set it all up and make sure it's all nice on time or whatnot. And it works better with simpler things. Not super complex stuff. Like if you're throwing in like a whole loop, it's not going to be able to do it. And sometimes it comes out with some really funny results. But that's that. Then we got correct macroing. How to be a boss and macro right. Let me take a vape hit. Grab a little bit of water. So let's just use this. So we're gonna, oh shit, open up Spotify. Everybody's gonna see your 6 Spotify playlists.
Sick, dude.
So we got this loop. We've done a lot of processing to it. Wink, wink. We've done some multi-band compression. We cut out some of the lows. Maybe gave it a little bit more warmth, So now we got all this going on, and we even got a little bit of reverb in there. So we have all this, and we're sick of clicking on each and every individual thing to edit it or whatever. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on our last one or first audio device, and we're going to hold down shift, go to our last one. We're going to do Control G. It's going to put it in a group. So right now it looks like that. You're like, how's that going to help me? So we have these little darkened things right here, which if you hover over them, it's going to say show hide chain list and show hide macro controls. So you're going to want to click that. excuse me, it's going to bring up your macros. Oops, so right, so we're sick of going in and doing everything separately, so let's go ahead and map some macros. Let's go ahead and we want to control how warm or how even distorted it could be. So let's go ahead and map our saturator, dry, and wet, to our first macro. But remember, let's correctly name it. Oop. So we're going to control R while we're selected on our macro. We're going to do saturator, dry / wet, right? So, so on and so forth. We have our reverb. So let's try to keep it organized, and let's do our reverb on, let's take up 3 and 4 with the reverb. So we're going to do our dry wet to 3, and we're going to do our decay time to 4. So reverb, dry / wet, decay time. We just leave that actually like that. Right, and then say we want to be high passing this at some point. We could go ahead and just click on that, and we could go to macro 5, and we could rename it to high pass filter. Oh, I did not do that right. So we're gonna return that to default. Actually, we're going to unmap it from there, and then we're going to put back on that. We're going to click our frequency, and we're going to map that to the high pass filter. So now you have this cool rack that you could save, and you could go to as far as throwing it in here like so, and name it like simple whatever, who cares, reverb. I'm gonna delete it anyways, and then you could make folders and whatnot, and have a bunch of audio devices that you've all made. And you get to the certain point where you don't even have to really you're not EQing things on their own because you have a rack for it or whatever. You could just throw it in there. You don't have to worry about setting everything up. We have drum confliction. So let's go ahead and add a kick. Let's just do that. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. Might want to get rid of our simple reverb. Let's go ahead and get us a snare. Ooh. Damn. What just happened? Or even, we're going 4 on the floor. Let's do that. Whee. And then, we have, snare tom. We have a snare tom. So then we got this in here, Let's add another one. So we got all these drums in here. All super loud. You just can't, you don't know what's going on. There's just too much in there. So, we're going to have our kick. We're going to go into audio effects. Go to utility. We're going to have our kick for mono. So it's going to be right in the middle. right? So we're gonna have our second one. Let's see. We're gonna have a second one going through both channels, even though his only goes through one channel. We're gonna have it going through both channels. And then we are going to find this. Or actually, let's just do it from scratch. We're gonna take a simple delay, and we're gonna go ahead and put it on our cymbals and our snares. We're gonna unsync, 1 and 10. Okay, like so. So what?
Dry at like 50%.
So that's gonna be pushing it to the back. And since we have a little bit more room in the middle, we could probably get this a little bit. Oh, because there's 2 kicks. Alright, let's just see. There's still kick. Let's do that one. So instead of everything just being like directly in one spot, it's you're like kind of widening everything out. Ooh, it works good when you have you know, like your build-up kicks going on, and then you have orchestral drums or whatnot. Another way of doing it is you could do the Haas effect too, which I'll show that off. All right. The Haas effect is we will take 2 utilities. Ooh. We'll group them up. We'll go to our chain view. We do one completely right and completely left. And then so it also works better with like a lead. Really loud, but so it's pushing it completely left and right instead of in the middle. But that is about it for some tips and tricks.
That's it.